That is the sound of excellence. What's up, everybody? I'm Don, and tonight's going to be a special case. Welcome to Super Castlevania IV for the Super Nintendo, or Akumajô Dracula for the Japanese Super Famicom. That is a mouthful. The reason why I'm playing the Japanese version is because A, the cosmetics are completely different, and B, for as many people who have played Castlevania IV for YouTube, not as many people have actually played the Japanese version, so I might as well be one of the very few. Akumajô Dracula is a reboot to the 1986 original of the same name. The Super Castlevania IV text scroll suggests that Simon is probably, and I think he is, 100 years old in that game, seeing as Castlevania rises every 100 years, and Simon's already defeated Dracula twice. So if you're going off the Americana version of this storyline, things will probably get confusing. So let me tell you a story. I was a kid once, and I played this game, and I saw that it was Super Castlevania IV, and I'm like, Super Castlevania IV. So they went from Castlevania 3 to Super Castlevania 4. Where are the other 3 Super Castlevania games? So yeah, I thought Super Castlevania was just a franchise in and of itself. That's how naive I was to Nintendo's stupid naming conventions back in the day. Like, what if they make a Mega Man 65 and 6? That would just be Legends 2 and Trombone because 64 already exists as Legends. And that, my friends, is Simon's theme, one of the best theme songs for a character ever invented by man. This game just does so much right, I'm just going to talk about it right now. The music in this game. No, I'm not going to talk about the whip yet, you're going to have to wait for that. The music in this game is just so great. It's the Super Nintendo sound chip at its finest. Where it can't do certain instruments like guitars well, it definitely makes up in pipe organs, and this pipe organ in this song, Simon's theme, it's grade A. I can't even talk. It's just that incredible. And there are certain people who don't really like the soundtrack as much as they do Castlevania 1 or 2 or maybe even 3. This soundtrack definitely goes darker, it's a lot more ambient and moody, but still got heavy hitters, and you also got the legacy songs coming back too, like Vampire Killer for one. But enough about the soundtrack, we all know it's awesome. Let's talk about the main source of killing in this game, the whip. 8-way direction, you can swing in pretty much any way you want to, and not only just that, you hold the button out and you can just hold the flail. I guess it's what it's called, a medieval flail. You can just hold it out and you can use it as kind of a defensive shield. Now, people are on and off about this. It's a great tool, but some people may find it too easy. And what I say about it is, what's wrong with having a little fun? Let's be honest, Castlevania IV is the most unique in the franchise in terms of weapon usage. The first 3 games had you use the whip in a horizontal fashion only, which is good for keeping enemies at a distance, but what if there are enemies above you and you don't have the axe sub-weapon? You can jump and attack in those games, sure, but for those Raven enemies that move quickly and from above, you're most likely going to get hit anyway. Which is why, for those games, you have to have an axe or some other sub-weapon that goes up. Or in this game, which is the best part, you can just attack up anyway. Which is weird because no other Castlevania game in the series, well, I'm not so sure about the Metroidvanias, I could be just talking out of the side of my face here, but at least for now, the 16-bit Castlevania games do not have 8-way directional whip, and if they do, it's for certain stipulations, like in Bloodlines, for example, John Morris can only whip up as he's in the air, and Eric Lacard can't. And Eric Lacard can strike with his staff in any direction if he's on the ground, but John Morris can only whip straight ahead. It's really strange, and I'll be sure to explain it when we get to that game. Actually, quick subject change. Here's something that was changed in the Japanese version to the American. Those crosses in the background with the dead skeleton horses, those weren't there in the American version. Nintendo of America was a bit stringent on the religious symbolism, along with other things back in the day. I know Final Fantasy IV and ActRaiser were hit by this the hardest. And this game is no exception. You're going to see later on that this level is going to have red viscous liquid instead of the green stuff that was in the American version. Because, hey guys, we can't have what looks to be blood in our PG-rated video game. And even saying PG is kind of not fair to PG itself, because there were some pretty grotesque PG-rated films back in the day, especially in the 90s. Now this guy is simple. The skeleton soldier will ride in on a horse which will crumble in 4 to 5 hits, and then he'll try to attack you himself, which is very easy to dodge. Yes, I do try to do a badass pose every time I beat a boss in Castlevania. It is the law. Especially in Castlevania 2 when the text boxes show up. But even then, it's kind of hard to judge when those text boxes actually show up. Now, just like Castlevania 3 in a way, you have to make progress into the castle itself instead of just starting out at the castle gates. This definitely gives the game a more adventurous feeling. Castlevania IV is one of the longer linear Castlevania games. And I say linear Castlevania, so unfortunately Castlevania 2 does not count. Castlevania 3 comes sort of close to this length, but not really. And there's also different pathways in Castlevania 3, so there's replay value there. Castlevania 1 is short as shit. Very short. You can beat that game in like 20 minutes if you want to. Bloodlines is... It's weird because Bloodlines has... It's a shorter game, but it's also got longer levels, which is an anomaly. And Rondo of Blood also has different pathways, so you could spend time playing that game over and over again. And also, playing as Maria in Rondo of Blood is one of the more game-breaking experiences in the series. You can turn an hour-long game into a 30-minute game if you know how to play as Maria. who can possibly hate this soundtrack? I know it's not pulse-pounding, but it's definitely jazzy. And that's what I love about Castlevania IV soundtrack. It's jazzy. Oh, and another thing that makes Castlevania IV a masterpiece, you can actually control your jump arcs, which no other Castlevania game, besides, again, I don't know about the other Metroidvanias outside of Symphony of the Night, because I know Symphony of the Night you can control your jumps, but no other Castlevania game after this and before this has controllable jumps. In Rondo of Blood and Bloodlines, you can somewhat control your jumps, like you can turn the character's sprite around, but you can't actually control the jump arc. So for this game, you don't have to fully commit to a jump like you did in Castlevania 1, 2, and 3. Definitely 2 and 3 because there were actual platforming sections in 2 and 3, and one mistake could cost you a life. And that's what makes Castlevania IV a masterpiece. You can control the character however you want to, and you're not bound by limitations of the character or movement speed or anything. The character feels like he should. You still got the famous Belmont knockback whenever you get hit, and he seems to fly a little bit further than he did in the Castlevania games on NES, but since he controls this well, I don't really mind it if he flies a little further back than usual. That is until I fly into a pit, which I know that will probably be my fault. FYI, don't fly into a pit during this playthrough. Medusa, she has the same pattern she did in Castlevania 3. She just wavers back and forth, throws snakes and petrification beams at you. Not too difficult to deal with, but I did a terrible showing and I almost died for it. For as much shit as people give this game for being a little too easy for a Castlevania game, there's still plenty of hard parts, especially later on in the game. Your highest chance of dying comes from falling into pits. I'm dead serious, this is one of the more pit-heavy Castlevania games. And there's also Slagura, who I'm pretty sure cheats because he's just that big of a pain in the ass. We'll get to him in the finale. For this section, the waterfall changes direction every once in a while. You have to take that into mind because if you walk into those spikes, it's an instant kill. Spikes are going to be the second contender for the highest chance of dying in the later part of the game, because later on you're going to be duck walking underneath a set of spikes, and if you let go of the crouch button, you're just going to hit your head on the spikes and die, which is a better excuse for dying to ceiling than Mega Man X6. What the fuck is that, Metal Shark player? What the fuck is that? Don't worry, if you're crouched underneath a low ceiling, you know, a regular low ceiling, and you let go of the down button, you'll just stay crouched. That's only if there are spikes overhead that you actually have to hold down the crouch button. This game came out in 1991, and the developers had the foresight to actually have the character interact with hazards like that. That's pretty genius. Well, it's not just with the character interacting with the environment, but also the player interacting with the character, because there are many games, including the original Sonic the Hedgehog. Strangely enough, just like X6, Sonic also dies when you let go of the crouch button in tight situations. So it's probably just a design oversight or bad programming, I don't know. It's pretty weird situations where Sonic just dies when he's crouched in certain locations. Here's the cave level, and this is a really good place to power up your sub-weapons. You throw your sub-weapons at the candles, and every once in a while you'll get a Roman numeral. Since I have a Roman numeral 2, I can throw out 2 boomerangs at a time, and if I have a 3, I'll be able to throw out 3 boomerangs at a time, which is probably the most broken thing ever. A Roman numeral 3 is akin to playing God, basically. Now, the Roman numeral 3 with a cross, well, you saw how good it was in Castlevania 3, which is considered the hardest game in the series, or one of the hardest games in the series. Now, playing Castlevania 4 with the 3 cross. Oh boy, nothing's stopping you now. The other sub-weapons are good too, if a little nerfed. I know the Holy Water's not as good as it was in the previous games. The fire effect is a bit smaller than, if say, Castlevania 1 or 3. The cross is still just as broken as ever. The axe is a little bit smaller than usual, but it's still good. You got the stopwatch, which does the same thing as before, and also, what's that other weapon? Oh, dagger, that's right. I kind of forgot what that weapon was. The dagger is actually somewhat good in this game. You can throw it really quickly. You got rock golems who will split into miniature rock golems when you hit them, and also slow the Super Nintendo processor to shit. The Super Nintendo may have beaten the Sega Genesis in sound and graphics, but the speed was something that Nintendo faltered on a lot. Take that, fireballs. I'm no longer completely defenseless. I don't understand why people don't like the whip in this game. It's better versatility and you don't get clocked in the head as much. Or from below, you have a better way of defending yourself. People on the internet will say that this game is overrated, and I just don't see it. I see it as a really excellent platformer. And this is coming from the guy who spent more time with Bloodlines than I did with this game. I definitely like the graphics in this one. You can tell that they were going with a grittier look, but there's still a huge array of colors like the purples and the greens. Everything pops. I can't say the same for Rondo of Blood and Bloodlines. Rondo of Blood has this anime look to it, which in and of itself is not bad, but for Castlevania it just looks off, and everything looks shiny and really clean, and that's also another turnoff. Bloodlines does a bit of both with Castlevania IV and Rondo of Blood. It has the anime look, but it also looks notably darker and grittier. We got new enemy types, bone dragons. They just wave up and down and shoot projectiles at you. You can destroy the projectiles, but your main goal is targeting the head. This section can be tricky because of the enemies here, and also knockback. If you get knocked back into a pit, instant death and you have to start the section over. And the checkpoints here are kind of sparse. You got the mermen who make a return from Castlevania III, and they don't really do that much. They just sit in the water and they spit at you. I don't know why spit would hurt Simon, but hey, maybe it's highly pressurized. This music to my ears. You know what it reminds me of? Shining Force 2. This musical track right here sounds similar to one of the songs in that game, or vice versa. This game came out before Shining Force 2. Continue to make your way up this tower. If you fall, the platforms are magically not there and you have to start over with a missing life, so don't fall. It's bad for your health. Well, it's bad for your health in real life, but especially in video games, don't fall. Skeleton Knights. They have really good range with their swords, but you can just duck underneath them and whip them. You'll be fine. Who turned off the jazz music? Leviathan/Wyvern is pretty easy with a cross. He can be difficult without it, but if you have triple cross, look how much health I can drain in like 2 seconds. One of the heads does a spread shot attack while the other does a flamethrower attack. You gotta know which head does what in order to not get knocked back into the pit and die. But that's going to be the end for part 1 of Castlevania IV. Tune in for part 2 where things get a little bit more 3-dimensional.